Hi all, it's Dan from the Gen-Xers. I'm hard at work on a new Norm Macdonald video for you all. It's a little bit more ambitious than some of our previous stuff, so it's taken a little bit longer than I had hoped, but it's gonna be up in the next couple of days. That I promise, and I think you're all going to enjoy it quite a bit. In the meantime, I've put together all of my previous Norm videos into one package here, remastered the sound a little bit for you, added a few extra tidbits, and I hope you enjoy it. If so, please hit like and subscribe to make sure that you get the notification for the big finale coming up in a few days.
You've been thinking about your mortality a lot lately? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, you turn 70 and you can't run from it.
Ah, fuck, I was hoping you could.
Norm Macdonald is my favorite comedian of all time. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you why I think he's one of the best to ever do it, one of the most influential, why I think his comedy was the perfect fit for Generation X, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ever-growing Norm Macdonald fandom that's both unique and endearing, and I think quite a fitting tribute to Norm. I hope you stick around, and please think about liking and subscribing if you like this video.
He doesn't want to say much. He's just getting ready, concentrating, studying his act. I feel it.
I first saw Norm Macdonald on the MTV half-hour comedy hour in the early 90s. I was only a senior in high school, but I'd already seen a decent amount of stand-up, I guess, because of the big boom then, and I just thought he was probably the funniest stand-up I'd ever seen at that point. And nothing ever happened since to change my mind about that, to be honest.
Like the other day, I was having a dream of, I was in a pool with Christy Brinkley. You know, we were approaching each other there, and and then I woke up. Then I was trying to fall asleep there, and ended up shooting pool with David Brinkley.
I spent the rest of my senior year telling the same old Norm jokes to anyone who'd listen.
And hitting the shelves next week, Simpsons' newest video, Dorf on Stalking. The crowd is torn.
I've spent the rest of my life telling the same old Norm Macdonald jokes over and over, and I know I'm not the only one. Norm's fandom continues to grow even after his passing, and it's certainly risen to the level of meeting Jonathan Swell's criteria for a discourse community.
Sure, I knew that.
We've got a place to meet. We have our own jargon, code words like Albert Fish.
This guy's a real jerk.
Old Chunk of Coal.
I'm just an old chunk of coal.
Frank Stallone.
Tell the folks at home.
I found your son, so the Germans would have us believe. Underneath the Queensboro Bridge, Jew in a doghouse, Professor Logic, the more I hear tell of, Battle Axe reminds me of that tragedy. And finally,
she was a good girl. Mama's apple pie. The 4th of July. She was a hooker!
She's a hooker! We also tend to share a set of core values, and I think those are important to understanding why people, and especially people of Generation X, love Norm so much.
So many people like pretend that they don't give a f, you know? Like that guy clearly, in the best way, didn't give a f. He really cared about people and stuff, but like he did what he wanted to do.
He had this seeming like indifference about whether the crowd liked it or not. He was going to do what he was going to do, and he was so ballsy that you found it kind of scary.
We'll get to all of that in just a minute. First, let's take a look back. After a few performances and amateur nights at Yuck Yucks in Ottawa, Canada, Norm got a big break when he was asked to perform on Star Search in 1986.
I went to buy a dog. This guy tried to sell me the most killing dog in the world, a big pit bull. $600 pit bull, you know? And I don't want to buy that, you know? $600. Holy cow. You know, guy says, this dog will protect your valuables. You know, I don't even have any that valuable, you know? I mean, I buy a pit bull. That would be the most valuable thing I own, right there.
It was there he met his greatest foe, the Bushman. The Bushman was a stand-up comic from Liberia. I haven't been able to find out a whole lot more about him other than it looks like he did fall on some hard times. I don't want to accidentally exploit anyone or anything, so let's just take a look at the results.
A long-time distinguished actor originally from England, currently the star of the ABC hit series Mr. Belvedere.
Hey, man, you know Belvedere? I'll tell you something about Belvedere you might not know. I go, what's that? He goes, he loves fried mozzarella.
He said, you gotta stop feeding Belvedere. And I said, man, he likes it.
Please welcome Christopher Hewitt. In international comedy competition, the challengers are from Canada, Norm Macdonald. From Liberia, Bushman.
It always looks bad when they lose, you know, so it's, well, another tough decision for the judges.
Another hard decision for the judges. Let's see what it is. From Liberia.
And the rest is history. Bushman went on to be a huge star, and we never heard from Norm Macdonald again. I'm just kidding, of course, or why else would I be doing this video? We all know that Norm went on to have a career that any stand-up would be proud of.
Yeah, I gained 45 pounds.
Are you okay? Yeah, what's going on?
I'm doing it for a movie.
For what role? What's the role?
What are you playing, Jackie Gleason? It wasn't a particular role, but I figured they always need a big fat guy in a movie. Turns out they don't. They have plenty of fat guys that are much more experienced at acting and at being a fat guy than I am.
Fat guy roles aside, Norm created beloved cult classics like Dirty Work.
Dirty Work. To my listeners, I challenge you guys to go watch the movie Dirty Work.
We hide these fish all over the house, and they'll stink for days. Okay, let's go.
Dirty Work is pound for pound. Pound for pound. One of the funniest movies you will ever
Smells like fish in here.
What is that? What was that? Some sort of signal? Huh? Show these guys what we do to cops.
Say hello to the devil for me! Behind you! Mr. Newsy! Now you're killing me with that chainsaw! He took away my chainsaw! And now he's using it on me!
The Norm Show ran for 3 seasons, and I think it's way better than most people gave it credit for.
Just give me the dog, okay?
No, you gave him up. He's my dog now.
You can't take my dog.
Oh, really, huh? We're social workers, pal. We can take children.
There was also A Minute with Stan Hooper. It may not have lasted long, but it was very funny and had the potential to be an all-time classic if Norm would have gotten his way.
Show. I was on
the Stan Harper Show.
It's Hooper.
Stan Hooper.
Yeah.
A Minute with Stan Hooper. One of the funniest shows.
Anyways, at the end of the first season, which we never got to, my wife was going to be brutally murdered.
And Stan Hooper?
Yeah.
Like our good friend Gilbert Godfrey, Norm's unique voice made him a shoo-in for great voice acting roles. And even when his projects were hampered by bad corporate decision-making,
They had Norm Macdonald, who's like the most eclectic fucking Renaissance mad mind, hosting a goddamn sports show. That was their idea. That's called putting somebody in a fucking harness.
Norm might not have had the mainstream success that some of his contemporaries did, or that many of us think he should have had, but it wasn't because of his work ethic as some briefly speculated. It was more because of his ethics. Norm didn't pander. He didn't do comedy that he didn't think was funny just to make money.
He was the purest version of Don't Say This. And then he would find the most brilliant way to do it. He was a wordsmith.
Norm's comedy is for everyone, but I do think his refusal to pander is a big part of the reason why Generation X comedy lovers love him so much. I mean, that was supposed to be our thing, right? The generation that was never going to sell out. Remember this guy? Norm showed his trademark integrity even as a very young comedian when he got his first huge break on Saturday Night Live.
An edgy, underappreciated Weekend Update anchor.
Oh, the best. Easily the best weekend guy.
Norm's integrity was put to the test when head of NBC Don Allmeyer wanted him to stop doing jokes about O.J. Simpson, his buddy.
O.J. Simpson's lawyers say they don't want the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman in the courtroom during the trial. They're afraid the presence of the family members will just remind O.J. of how much more killing he still has to do.
You don't mind if I ask you a question?
What's that?
I hear this story, and there's like this press release that you get your ass fired. Is that true? No, you didn't get fired.
Yeah, they fired me.
No, they didn't fire you.
No, I'm serious. I talked to a guy that said I'm fired. And the Pope came out with a book this week, which contains a series of essays examining faith and morality in today's secular world and the changing role of the Catholic Church as it approaches the 21st century. The book is entitled, God Himself Told Me That O.J. Is Guilty. He goes, oh yeah, I'm firing you there from the show. And then I said, oh, that's not good. And then I said, why is that now?
And he goes, oh, you're not, you're not funny.
Yeah.
And then I said, holy Lord, that's even worse news. Well, it is finally official. Murder is legal in the state of California.
Of course, we all know the real reason he was fired.
Now, I know Don Ohlmeyer, and just between you and me, he's an idiot.
Norm's refusal to not be funny even cost him the greatest sponsor of all time, the Man Grate.
What is the Man Grate, you ask? It is 100% made in America. Cast iron grilling grates.
Iron. You don't pronounce it iron.
Man Grates.
Iron?
That
are
are
you kidding when you say iron?
They are revolutionizing the way people grill.
It should be iron. That's what makes English the world's toughest language.
What, Adam Egan? Is it true? You haven't heard of the revolution?
Alright, well, I was able to clean the sound up in that a little bit for you at least. Luckily, I've gotten better editing since I first started, so this next Norm video, the one that rounds out this first trilogy of Norm videos, will be of a little better quality, I hope. Now, the second one I put up, about one of Norm's more controversial talk show appearances, made me a little nervous at first. I wasn't sure what YouTube would allow. I wasn't sure about the kind of comments I would get, or if it would cause a big brouhaha, with a bunch of people fighting back and forth. This isn't a channel that wallows in controversy, and we don't really cater to or want that kind of thing, so, it was a little bit of a gamble, but I think it turned out all right. Turns out a lot of Norm fans agreed with me. This wasn't controversial, it was just fun. This is not a political video.
I don't like political comments.
It's definitely not a conspiracy video. What it is a deconstruction and an appreciation of the greatest, gutsiest, funniest, and most misunderstood talk show appearance of all time. It's the story of comedy that is working on many different levels at once. It's the story of trolling taken to such an art that it becomes razor-sharp social commentary. It's the story of a guy just goofing around.
Stupidly a couple of times to be provocative. I sometimes will just, for the point of arguing with someone, I'll argue with them.
And it's the epitome of the Gen X belief that anytime you can stick it to the man, you should. This is the story of that time Norm Macdonald went on The View and said this.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Norm Macdonald's regular guest spots on talk shows like David Letterman and Conan O'Brien are stuff of legend. The moth joke, the chairman of the board, professor of logic, his emotional goodbye to Dave after a brilliant stand-up routine. I could go on and on and on. But his appearance on The View in 2000 was perhaps his most controversial, and I'm going to argue his most brilliant. First, the setup.
Stay with us. We're about to take you on an exciting and bumpy ride. NBC News is now taking Florida out of Vice President Gore's column and putting it back in the too close to call.
The 2000 presidential election was one of, if not the closest and most controversial elections in American history, and Norm's appearance on The View happened directly in the aftermath. The 24-hour news cycle in daytime TV was having a field day with it. It seemed like everyone on either side had to have an impassioned opinion on it, especially if you were famous.
How did the Democrats do?
It wasn't exactly the beginning of America's obsession with the minutiae of politics, but it was certainly a big factor. There were a number of conspiracy theories surrounding the election, and everyone thought someone or another was trying to steal the election from them. In the end, the Democratic candidate, Al Gore, won the popular vote by a slim margin, and the Republican candidate, George W. Bush, won the electoral vote by a margin of just 537 votes. The election was ultimately decided by the Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of Bush, 5-4, and just led to more conspiracy theories about the election being quote-unquote stolen. In truth, there may be a number of reasons why Gore lost the election.
Could I just add that in my plan, the lockbox would be used only for Social Security and Medicare. It would have 2 different locks.
And one may be that he did not want former President Bill Clinton campaigning with him. Clinton had been, and still remained, a popular president among his base, but he was also mired in controversy at the time due to the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Gore may have believed that Clinton's presence on the campaign trail would hurt his chances of winning. There was also a darker conspiracy theory circulating, but I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, and nor do I want to.
I know nothing about politics.
I just mention it because Norm does, and what is the most controversial part of his appearance. But as you will soon see, it's not the only controversial part. The 2000 election was mired in controversy, and temperatures were hot on both sides. The media was really starting to kick into over-partisanship on both sides of the fence, and the country needed the ice-cold insight of Canadian, old chunk of coal, and world's funniest man, Norm Macdonald, to point out just how insane we were all being.
Supreme Court will begin hearing arguments over whether Paula Jones' sexual harassment suit against President Clinton may proceed.
And he did it the only way Norm could, with hilarious insight.
Jones, who claims that while governor of Arkansas, Clinton exposed himself to her in a hotel room, says that she can accurately and precisely describe the president's genitalia.
And the ability to work on many different levels of comedy at once.
But White House spokesman scoffed, quote, "Any woman who's worked in the state of Arkansas for the last 20 years could do that."
Keep in mind as we get ready to deconstruct this appearance that we used to think that messing around with or even sticking it to a little bit authority figures was funny. Even if we liked them, even if we agreed with their politics, none of that matters. We thought it was funny just as a matter of course. And we were right. Also keep in mind that Norm had a lot to lose here as well. I've talked about how Norm Macdonald never sold out in a previous video. Please go take a look if you haven't. And this is the most admirable iteration of that I can think of. It hadn't been all that long since he'd been fired from SNL, and while that stunk, it did give him a sense of coolness that had the media buzzing about him. His sitcom Norm was still pretty new and could use all the publicity it could get. Let's listen to Artie Lang talk about it just a little bit.
Norm went on The View when we were doing the sitcom together. He had to fly to New York. We were shooting the show in L.A. at the Warner Bros. Thing, and I got there late, of course. And I'm going, and all the writers are mad about something. And I didn't see The View. they're all just super mad. They went, "Ask your buddy Norm." I go, "What did he do? I can't wait." They're all mad in another room. I'm in the office like, "Ah!" And they never begged him to do another thing he didn't want to do.
It all started with Barbara Walters' rather snide introduction of Norm.
So try these words out. Droll, sarcastic, controversial, hilarious.
She says hilarious like she was forced to.
But as you will see in this clip, people may think twice before they use the words smooth or charming. And in spite of that, please welcome Norm Macdonald.
Barbara's smiling here, but that's a pretty underhanded way to introduce someone's sitcom on national television, especially when they're there to try to promote it. This is a tired man.
I mean, to go on The View, right? So I was like up all night, like for a long time, because I was in my gambling days and stuff like that. All right, what's up, man?
Okay, Norm, you're Canadian.
Yes, I am.
So what do you think of this whole presidential mess?
I believe that this is the moment Norm and Jean Macdonald realized that the ladies of The View were setting them up for their own minor, buzzworthy, kind of gotcha moment, and he decided to turn the tables. The reason I believe this is because not long before this appearance, a few photos circulated of Norm Macdonald, George W. Bush, and worst of all, Ben Stein. Because the recent election had everyone so heated, even this seemingly minor thing made news somehow. Let's listen to Norm talk about it.
What happened was I got a call from this guy, Ben Stein. You know that guy?
Sure, yeah.
When Ben Stein called me and said, "Hey, George Bush is coming to, some celebrities are going to meet him. Would you like to meet him?" And I go, "Yeah, that'd be cool, meeting a guy that might be to become the president."
Right.
So, like when Clinton came, like there was like 10,000, like Streisand and Schwarzenegger, everybody, showed up. And then when Bush showed up, it was just me and Ben Stein. Literally, it was me and Ben Stein. We were this. The lady from The View goes, "Take a look at this picture," and show a picture of me standing beside presidential nominee George Bush. Like, what's going on here? That's what the lady says to me. One of the ladies, right? The way they said it, it was like that picture of Kurt Waldheim with Hitler.
And away we go.
Well, I hope that the Democrats don't steal the election from the the winner, you know. But
I've always felt like Norm's nervous energy kicked it up a notch here. I also find it interesting that he's chewing gum like one of his most notorious smart aleck characters.
You like George Bush, don't you?
I love George Bush, man. He's a good man, decent, you know, none of this. See, I think we should get the homicide out of the White House.
And this is where Star Jones realizes they asked the wrong question of the wrong fella.
We don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Barbara gives Norm a stern look, and Joy tries to pretend that this isn't hilarious.
Murderers. Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to put out no accusations without
That's a little
Charlie.
too far.
That's the way it does work.
Let's just go on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is not my week. What can I tell you?
Barbara thinks it's over, and I actually do think that Joy found it funny. Unlike today, back then the idea that a celebrity would go on TV and espouse belief in one of the more out there conspiracy theories was ridiculous. But Norm wasn't content with just being ridiculous. He had something much more layered and insightful in store.
I'm being very nice, okay? Be a good boy.
This isn't the wisest thing to say to any comedian. Remember this?
When you have this marvelous opportunity not to be the guy's butt boy, to go ahead and be his butt boy.
Yes,
Come on,
no.
it's embarrassing.
You have a responsibility to the public discourse, and you
need to get
fail
a job at a journalism
miserably.
school, I think.
You need to go to one.
I thought you were going to be funny. Come on, be funny.
No, I'm not going to be your monkey.
Now, Norm.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen, we don't need
I
to
don't want
talk
to get
about
into this,
this.
and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny.
No, I'm not going to be your monkey.
Here comes the funniest retort in daytime television history, just as soon as Norm is done being chastised by Barbara.
You have been properly chastised by Barbara, so I'm now going to ask the next question.
I thought it was a matter of record.
And another great Normism is born.
Tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up.
He was on The View many more times. And here comes the second greatest line ever spoken on daytime television.
All right, manslaughter.
And all of a sudden, like, my cell phone rings, right?
You got the bit, yeah.
The bit.
Morty's on the phone.
This guy would always have ideas. He would phone me with ideas. He'd go, I'll tell you what you do, man. He goes, you come out. He goes, you're talking to the gals, and all of a sudden, your cell phone rings, right? He goes, it's in the middle of the show. Like, he's really excited, right? He goes, you answer the cell phone. You go, excuse me, ladies. He goes, we're not going to tell them. No.
Dude, you got a phone ringing.
Oh.
Answer the phone.
The cell phone rings. He goes, excuse me, ladies. It's your agent, Morty. You know he had this name?
Right. Yeah.
He goes, so you're like, Morty, you can't call me here. I'm on The View. You know, I'm on TV.
Right.
What do you mean you have an offer for me? You know?
Hello? Oh, yeah. No. The thing is this. There, you know Matt Strauss?
Yeah, the producer.
The producer. He told me it would be funny. He said, like, why don't you carry a cell phone on and then let it ring and then pretend like there's a guy on it?
Is there anybody on it?
No, it's a pretend thing.
You know what, Norm? You're a dead man.
Probably not the best thing to say when someone's on your show talking about celebrity conspiracy theories.
Give this
man a plate of soup and tell him to shut up.
Norm,
all right then.
Despite herself, I honestly believe that Barbara is starting to find this funny as well. Let's see how long that lasts.
Norm, listen, not only have you annoyed us, but
I've read
that you have actually annoyed one of your idols. Who is that?
You've heard of comedy aging badly. This bit aged perfectly.
Oh, the great Bill Cosby.
Yeah, what'd you do?
Oh, my God, I love that guy. He's my hero, you know, just like you, maybe Bill Clinton would be your hero.
It's most likely just a coincidence, but what comes next makes it seem like Norm might have heard something about Mr. Cosby, and also thinks that Barbara might know something as well, and she was supposed to be the journalist.
There has never been any accusations toward Bill Cosby.
Norm is comparing Bill Clinton to then America's dad, Bill Cosby. He's still continuing to get under Barbara's skin, which I maintain is probably his #1 goal. And I have no way of knowing if he knew anything about Bill Cosby, but those rumors had been out there for years. And perhaps as a celebrity journalist, Barbara Walters would have known that as well.
You know how funny Bill Cosby is.
Yeah, so get to the point. I'm going past menopause.
That was a pretty good line from Joy, and it really helped to break the tension. And now, Norm gets to the point.
Not everything has a point.
By the way, here's a precursor to that Bill Cosby story.
You know, I had maybe the greatest Bill Cosby story ever.
Really?
And now it's not in the top 10,000.
I met Bill Cosby. We're all fans of Bill Cosby, right, Burma?
Uncanny.
I like Bill Cosby. Let's talk about the millionaire.
Norm Macdonald and I are on The Millionaire tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell him about that, how you thought he's dumb today. Where do you see him tonight?
Did you say Greenbrier?
Yeah.
You would have won $1 million, but
People always told me Hollywood was like incredibly liberal of bias, and I thought it was untrue.
Norm always claimed not to care about politics, and I believe him. But he didn't seem to like hypocrisy.
Patton Oswalt, he told me, I think the worst part of the Cosby thing was the hypocrisy. And I disagreed.
Even though things had settled down and everyone seemed to be having a pretty good time, Norm didn't forget the way they tried to set him up at the beginning of the show. There was no reason for anyone to ask Norm anything about politics other than to show off that picture and try to get a viral moment out of it. Well, they did. In the end, while it might be fun to analyze comedy, it's of no real value. Either it makes you laugh or it doesn't. And this appearance on The View has been making me laugh for 23 years. This episode of The View didn't sit well with everyone. Many accused him of being insensitive and disrespectful to the victims of violent crimes, but for fans of Norm's comedy, this was classic Norm. He was known for his ability to take on controversial subjects and push the boundaries of what's considered acceptable in comedy, and to do so in a keen, insightful way. Norm hated hypocrisy.
I think the worst part of the Cosby thing was the hypocrisy.
Even if it was only the second worst thing about most crimes. Plus, as I've pointed out before, he put his own sense of funny above everything else. These days, I think most people who appreciate comedy are in agreement. This 2000 appearance on The View by Norm Macdonald was typical Norm. Hilarious, biting, and somehow, still underneath it all, just good-natured and mischievous. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
There's not a lot of comedians out there, though, and so when you lose one of them, and not to mention one of the greats, and one of the last ones that would speak his mind, it feels like you're losing a book that nobody has copies of.